Formula One on 5 Live.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Monte Carlo. It's round 6 of the Formula One World Championship and the sun continues to shine down here in the Principality between the packed out harbour and the apartment balconies full of glamorous residents getting an eagle-eyed look on this historic racetrack. And we've got another busy hour ahead of us. For free practice too is Harry Benjamin up in the commentary box, which sits actually just above the grandstands between the swimming pool chicane and Rascasse. And due to the elevation of the pit lane, we get a brilliant view of the Mercedes and Red Bull garage, along with our pit lane reporter, Rosanna Tennant. Give us a wave.
Hello, bonjour, can you see me?
We've spotted you right outside George Russell's garage.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I've been having a little look in all the different garages. It's still very busy in the Red Bull garage of Isaac Hadjar's. The French driver had a crash in FP1 and they are still putting his Red Bull back together. So as you can imagine, the fans who are in the grandstands beneath your commentary box are getting a bird's eye view of all that activity. And it's hot down here, Harry. There's a lot more shade in the pit lane now this afternoon than there was this morning. So a little cooler for the mechanics and teams to operate in, but it's very sunny where I'm standing. And let me tell you, this is my favourite pit lane to work in throughout the season, because whilst I'm not actually there at the garage doors, I have to stand on the other side of the pit lane behind Armco. I get to see the cars swinging it down into Rascasse, and it is the most amazing vantage point because I can actually see the steering inputs of the drivers. And this morning, when Isaac Hadjar had his crash, I could see right into his cockpit when he came to a halt beneath me. But the atmosphere is really ramping up here. The fans are finding their seats in the grandstands. They've unfurled a huge Scudetto, the large Ferrari flag, in one of the big grandstands at the second chicane here, the second swimming pool chicane. So I think the fans are ready to see some more track action.
Absolutely, and so are we. It's such a unique place. Up in the commentary box alongside myself, guiding you through this session. The last for today is our BBC F1 correspondent Andrew Benson and F1 journalist for the race, Scott Mitchell-Marm. And Scott, based on what we saw in FP1, well, the rumours are true. Ferrari in for the win?
It's early to dream, but is it too early to dream? It would be a great story if this could continue through the weekend. It's a big FP2 for every team really to dial stuff in before Saturday, but Ferrari's certainly in a good place, and work to do for the teams that have otherwise been ahead of them so far, Mercedes and especially McLaren. We didn't see the best of McLaren in FP1.
Yeah, a few people had their laps scuppered with Isaac Hadjar's crash, and also Fernando Alonso late in the day as well. That brought out a red flag, although he skimmed the bit of his front wing off coming into the Nouvelle chicane and actually avoided what could have been a much bigger accident, made it back to the pit lane, but that ended things with a few minutes to go under a red flag. But well, we were all having lunch in the break. Andrew, you were nowhere to be found. I presume you've been doing some investigations up and down the paddock?
I have, yes, enjoying the sunshine. And actually, on the subject of Fernando Alonso, who's on the telly right now, if anybody's watching the screen, Pedro de la Rosa, the team representative, the former F1 driver, was in the press conference. He was talking about what caused that accident, and it's basically a combination of everything about the car being rubbish. It's unstable under braking, the gearbox doesn't work very well, but the key thing was I saw Pedro afterwards in the paddock. We walked along having a chat about various things. I've known him for a very long time, and he was absolutely lost for words about the skill Alonso showed in rescuing that from an almighty accident. In the situation that happened, that basically the wheels locked as soon as he hit them over the crest that you approach that chicane over, and how he didn't have a massive accident, I'll never know, and Pedro didn't know either. So we were right, Scott, in our assessment that was one of those, the save of the decade almost for Fernando Alonso.
And one of those
awesome was the word Pedro used.
Yeah, and one of those great examples of a driver of that ability's instinct, because as Pedro revealed in that press conference, to save that moment, Alonso did the counterintuitive thing of coming off the brakes to just stop it from having to careering round into something even more aggressive. So yeah, mighty job from Alonso. Better than the car deserves.
Yes, and only a little bit of carbon fibre flying off from that front wing. So
story of the last 15 years of his career, isn't it, really?
Maybe don't bring that up next time you see him.
No, he's well aware. He's well aware.
Well, to be fair, if you want a case of keeping motivated, look no further than Fernando Alonso. Somehow, somewhere, he stays focused and at the sharp end. Even if the car can't provide it, he will always get the maximum it can. And who knows, maybe Monaco qualifying on Saturday could throw a spanner in the works along the way. It has a habit of throwing a few things up in the air. Let's see. But before we get there, we have our second practice session of the day today, and the clock has already started counting down. The green light is on at the end of the pit lane for those who wish to do a sync up. It's 59 minutes and 29, 28, 27, 26 seconds remaining of this session as Gabriel Bortoleto makes his way in the Audi out onto the track and feeds in on the run up towards Casino Square. And it's looking rather tight down at the end of the pit lane, Scott. I wouldn't want to be a Cadillac driver trying to get out now. Yeah,
that's a fun little traffic jam. Monaco here, it extends from the circuit itself even into the pit lane. They're actually holding back a little bit further down in the pit lane to avoid getting into it. But it's interesting, everybody out on track so far immediately on the mediums. We saw a lot of people running the hard in FP1. He thinks this will be an FP2 filled with a lot of qualifying simulations of one degree or another. Everything is just from this point onwards is just building to Saturday afternoon, and you just need so much confidence around this track.
It really is. One man who'll be looking to try and rebuild that confidence is Isaac Hadjar in that Red Bull after crashing out of the second part of the swimming pool chicane in free practice one. Still looks like there's a fair bit of work going on down at Hadjar's side of the garage, as they still should be able to get him out in time, but not taking straight away into the start of this session. This is the sound of George Russell making his way up through Casino Square, the man who sits 43 points behind his 19-year-old teammate Kimi Antonelli, who leads the championship with 131 points. Then it's the two Ferrari. Charles Leclerc sits third in the standings with Hamilton in fourth. Lando Norris propping up the top five in the Drivers' Championship. Over in the Constructors, it is Mercedes who lead the way. They have a 72-point gap over Ferrari. McLaren then sit third, with Red Bull and Alpine the top five. Racing Bulls are in sixth ahead of Haas, with Williams and Audi the last of the point scorers, rounding out the top nine in the Constructors, with Cadillac ahead of Aston Martin based on countback results. Neither team have yet to score points in this championship. Now, as we hear the sounds of George Russell making his way towards Rascasse, I think we've got an update on Hadjar in that Red Bull. Let's send it back down to Rosanna. Have we got a Rosanna? Are you there?
Oh, Harry, you just suddenly vanished from my ears, and now you are back. Your dulcet tones are back. Thank goodness for that.
Thank the Lord for that.
I know, my prayers have been answered. Yeah, Isaac Hadjar just came down the steps from the floor above the Red Bull garage, because it's a bit different here. They come over and they wait upstairs and then come downstairs to their garage, rather than everything sort of being in the pit building as it is at normal tracks. Still haven't explained that well, but anyway, he's come down. He's got his oval rolled down. He is standing at the back of the garage, and I think he is now maybe starting to get ready, but the mechanics are still working on his car. One mechanic is standing holding the front wing, with two others holding the side of it, so they haven't even pieced that bit back together yet. So still quite a bit to do, and Isaac now has actually disappeared into the back or the depths of the garage, so at least he's down here. He was wearing a cooling vest, so as I said to you earlier on, it is a little bit hot down here, so he's obviously just trying to keep his body temperature nice and low before hopefully getting into his Red Bull and taking part in this second practice session.
Yeah, thanks, Rosanna. Keep us updated on that front. Teammate Max Verstappen out on track. Indeed, everybody is, bar Hadjar. Around the final corner, we're looking at the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, who was going quickest through the first two sectors. Pops in a lap time of a 1:17.024, only a 13 thousandths of a second back from the fastest time, which is Lando Norris. But I think he's about to be deposed by Max Verstappen, who flies over the line to top the timesheets of 1:15.9. And now Hamilton is going fastest of anybody through the first sector.
It's an interesting mix of kind of what drivers and teams are going for at the moment. Obviously, a few absolutely on it straight away. No surprise to see Max Verstappen is one of those. I know this isn't FP1, they have had the hour running in so far, but he's always very comfortable taking it to the limit early, whereas Russell, for example, getting quicker and quicker in this session, but he's a couple of seconds off at the moment. So yeah, we'll wait and see for it to converge, but this is looking like, at this stage of the session anyway, it's going to be a good lap from Hamilton.
Yeah, it certainly is. Round Anthony Noakes, fastest of anybody through the first two sectors. I think he'll make it 3 for 3, and in the early stages goes 1.6 seconds clear at the top of the times, a 1:14.306, but Charles Leclerc is not done yet either, flying through the second part of the swimming pool chicane, but still not actually managing to pip his teammates' timings through the first two sectors. Whether the Monegasque on home soil can find something in the final sector, he absolutely can. Not by much though, 66 thousandths of a second separating the two Ferrari drivers. The times come thick and fast. They will continue to chop and change in these early stages.
Yeah, Russell pops up into fourth now. He's a second off. Verstappen 7/10 back from the Ferraris. I mean, six minutes into FP2, but I'm already getting quite excited about the idea that this could potentially be the theme of the day.
Well, one of the, we should actually probably say, as Piastri's on a lap, Andrew, maybe we bring you in on this. For those who didn't join us in free practice 1, there's a few technical changes to make note of for this weekend.
Well, the main one, Harry, is no straight line mode for this weekend. That means people might have noticed who've been watching Formula 1 regularly, as part of the package of new rules that was introduced this year, the front and rear wings have both been opening on all the straights pretty much. They've stopped that happening this weekend, the FIA, the governing body, because of safety reasons, basically. What it's meant is that the teams, there's a sort of area of regulation that has now become free because of the mechanism that moves the rear wing open is no longer needed. And most of the teams have used that to deploy a new design of small winglets of one kind or another. And the general feeling is that Mercedes, of the top teams anyway, that Mercedes, Red Bull and McLaren have made a more inventive, imaginative solution to those regulations than Ferraris. It looks a bit tacked on and small scale, as Liam Lawson taps the wall on the exit of swimming pool 2 where Isaac Hadjar crashed earlier today. They're only worth a few hundredths, these wings, but in Monaco qualifying is normally really close because the lap is so short. And one of the teams was saying, one of the representatives from one of the teams I was talking to yesterday was saying that that they would let me know after qualifying whether the time that if they ended up beating Ferrari in qualifying, and depending on what the margin was, whether the wing that they've got they feel would have made up that margin, which is a bit of sort of amusing fun and games that goes on behind the scenes in Formula 1.
Well, it's led to some quite garish designs springing up on the rear wing, particularly from the Red Bull side of the garage, which I think we might have some news on the stricken Red Bull from FP1. Hadjar, Rosanna, anything more?
Hadjar is in the car, Harry. They've just given him his little step ladder to get into the cockpit of the Red Bull car, and he's being strapped in now by one of the mechanics. The front wing still isn't attached. That's still being held by 3 mechanics just steadying it before it's attached. So a few last minute details being checked by the mechanics, and then hopefully he'll get going. And we were talking about the rear wing and what some of the teams have been doing. I mentioned it in FP1, but if you weren't with us, the way that the Red Bulls has been constructed, it looks like a little dog from the side profile. So yeah, it's keeping me amused down here. It's always nice to see innovation in the pit lane, and I think we're going to see more of that, of course, throughout the year.
I thought it looked more like a squirrel.
Okay.
Is this a picture on a poll going up on BBC Sport? I think it might well be.
A squirrel or a dog? There we go.
Hashtag BBC F1. Let us know your thoughts. 51 minutes. 4, 3, 2 seconds remaining of free practice 2. Times continuing to tumble. Max Verstappen fastest of anybody through the first sector. We were just riding on board with Kimi Antonelli a few moments ago. He's popped up into second. And when we get the privilege of watching the visuals, Scott, when you're riding on board with a driver, you just cannot, I cannot understand how they are not putting it in the wall.
There's been so many little moments already, and some bigger ones too. So for example, with Mercedes, Kimi Antonelli has gone within an absolute whisker of Leclerc's fastest time so far. George Russell is a few tenths further back, even though he has set his personal best. He caught a pretty big slide out of the Turnsworth 13-14 chicane, the first part of the swimming pool section. That could have ended a lot worse. Max Verstappen looks like he's about to make a pretty decent improvement as well. He's currently 5th, 8 tenths off. Fastest.
Not bad at all from Max Verstappen. A 1:14.008, which puts just over a tenth and a half between himself and Leclerc. Antonelli third, Hamilton, Russell the top 5, Piastri, Norris the top 7. Then it's Behrman ahead of Sainz and Colapinto rounding out the top 10. Gasly, Lindblad and Lawson with Hulkenberg and Perez the top 15. Ocon, Albon, Alonso, Bottas and Stroll in P20 with Bortoletto down in 21st. Isaac Hadjar, as we've been updating you, still not quite out on track yet, but Red Bull hoping to imminently send him out after repair works taking a little longer than imagined post his free practice 1 crash. Now Lewis Hamilton is currently fastest of anybody through the first sector, just exiting his way out of the Nouvelle chicane, and there does feel like maybe I'm getting ahead myself here, Scott. Maybe I'm reading into, it's Hamilton. Looks like he's about to lose the car as it dances through the first part of the swimming pool chicane on rails in that Ferrari, and I hope that backs my point up. It feels like Lewis Hamilton has regained almost true momentum back in Formula One now, off the back of Canada, fighting for a podium. Brilliant wheel-to-wheel fighting with Max Verstappen. Really happy with the team that's around him now. Has had an input in the design of this car. Second season at Ferrari. Goes fastest by nearly 0.3 of a second. He is certainly riding the crest of a wave at the moment for probably the first time in his Ferrari career so far, because it's feeling like there might be some actual momentum to build on here. That was really on the edge from Hamilton. Huge wobble that he caught very, very nicely through the first part of the swimming pool, drifted through the second part. He also chucked it in brilliantly through the middle part of the Nouvelle chicane, the slow speed bit, chucking it over the curbs, dealing with the car, sort of dancing around in his hands. We haven't seen Hamilton do that much for years, because that ground effect era of car, 2022 to 2025, the characteristics of those cars didn't really lend itself to that. Hamilton wasn't particularly happy. I don't think, and he would probably admit this, he wasn't driving very consistently. I don't think he adapted well to those regulations. This is all feeling a little bit more kind of together for him now. And in that second year at Ferrari, pulling a few other things around him, more in his direction. It's still a bit early, but it's going well.
Thank you, boys. Thank you.
That is a thank you message from Isaac Hadjar to his team. Rosanna, I presume that means one thing?
He is out on track, Harry. So a great job by the Red Bull mechanics. They're currently just cleaning the garage floor now that his car isn't in it. But what a shift they put in over the lunch break. And he's back out there. And this is a track that Hadjar feels really comfortable at. He was saying that yesterday in the media pen, that he always seems to get up to speed nice and quickly here. But that would have rocked his confidence, the FP1 crash.
Yeah.
Sorry, was there something?
Oh no, you're still there. Sorry, I thought you dropped out. My apologies, Rosanna.
It's okay. So hopefully he can get back into the groove nice and quickly in this session. But Harry, something I'm really noticing looking down over the sort of second swimming pool chicane here in the pit lane is that it's getting incredibly congested. The cars are really backing up as they head towards Rascasse, and that just makes me think this time tomorrow during the qualifying session it's going to become.
Rosanna, so sorry, just to interrupt. We've got a yellow flag out on track. Lando Norris is getting out of his car down at the Nouvelle chicane, and we get a look at Lando Norris now. The virtual safety car is out. Is there any damage to the car? Doesn't look like it. Is that some sort of power unit failure? Because it looks like he's just pulled up in the runoff area down at the Nouvelle chicane. Lando Norris out of the car and walking away from his McLaren.
He seemed to be looking, just observing the sort of left side of his left side of the car as he got out of it, looking back. So it doesn't look like anything other than anything external. So it's a stoppage of some kind. We're about to get a bit of a look at what happened.
This is the sound of Norris making his way out of the tunnel,
which switches off
as he heads downhill. Yeah, you're right. The screen on his steering wheel just completely goes blank. There's the engine cutting out. Full stop for Lando Norris.
It's not been the most robust season so far for Mercedes customer team. McLaren has had certainly a few niggles and maybe more at different times. So yeah, this is we were talking earlier about the downside for Hadjar having that crash, the confidence, build it back up and whatnot. We talked as well that he did it last year. FP1's the time to lose your track time here in Monaco, this is worse, even though he hasn't crashed out, so there's not that confidence element in terms of a particular corner that he'll, give him a wobble next time he gets on track. But it's just lost laps. He will not be in the rhythm in the same way everyone else is when they go out in FP3 tomorrow. He will have more to learn, more to catch up on.
He certainly will. The pole sitter and race winner from last year in Monaco, and reigning world champion, out of free practice 2 as the marshals get to work and start rolling that McLaren to safety behind the barriers under the virtual safety car. So we're doing that under a VSC, so everyone just slowing down and hitting a delta time on their steering wheel that is displayed to them, so no need for a red flag and everyone to come back into the pit lane. But that is a big shame for Lando Norris, and I just wonder, we don't know the cause of that at all, but we know particularly McLaren and the Mercedes engines, they've had a few battery failures over the course of this year. Lando's already lost a couple, and they're trying to repair one, last I heard. So you lose more, you only get three for the year, and then if you go through that allocation, penalties start to come your way.
Batteries and MGUK issues. MGUK is the electrical motor that's part of the hybrid system that's much more powerful this year than it was last year. It's about, it's got 46% of the engine's overall power output, something like that.
Near, but not quite 50-50.
Yeah, exactly. And Mercedes have definitely got a reliability, fallibility. Lots of syllables in those 2 words.
Good band name.
Yeah, that would be a good indie band name, wouldn't it? Reliability, fallibility. I think I said it twice. On those sorts of components, the batteries in the MGUK. So I don't know that that's what's happened to Lando Norris, but it could be from the way that the engine shut down there.
Well, they'll try and get that, well, they won't be able to get that back really until the end of the session, but it will be costly for Lando Norris, down on track time then, but cars still continue to roll around out on circuit. It's Hamilton who just before the VSC came out, going quickest with a 1:13.729, over 2.5 tenths clear of Max Verstappen, Leclerc, Antonelli and Russell, the top 5.
The significance of that Hamilton lap as well is it's a couple of tenths quicker than Leclerc's benchmark from FP1, so we are now in that phase of it's all getting faster. So it's going to be really fun actually to see what we get down to, because we're still on the medium tyre after all. So they're obviously, this is what I mean, like, just because they're not doing the absolute out and out qualifying simulation, soft tyre, running on fumes, whatever it'll be, they're still pushing really hard with whatever compound they are, because they have to. It's just all building. I remember a few years ago we came here, 2021, when the Ferrari wasn't super competitive as a general rule that season, but basically almost everything they did through practice was all geared towards qualifying, and it paid off. It's hard to overcome a fundamental car deficit, but you need to be in the rhythm more than anything here.
Well, that's the thing of Monaco, isn't it? It's all done in qualifying, but this year, slightly smaller cars. Is there any remote possibility we could get a few more authentic overtakes in the race on Sunday?
Go on, Andrew.
Well, he's asking me because I wrote a story about this a couple of days ago. The office got quite excited about the idea.
Russell and Anthony going wheel to wheel through the hairpin.
I'll quote Fernando Alonso, this is Monaco, so probably no overtaking. I think, look, we've got I think that it started from this idea of a more exciting Monaco. Not that Monaco has ever not been exciting to my mind, because the drivers have been complaining this year about energy management. That's been the big thing. The cars are energy starved, and so qualifying has been kind of ruined a bit by energy recovery on the straights. So the car, if you imagine what a Formula 1 driver normally does, he brakes at the last, or any racing driver is supposed to brake at the last possible minute, balance the car on the edge of adhesion on the way into the corner, get on the power as early as possible in the corner, balance the grip on the way out, and then do it all over again the next corner, and so on lap by lap. You've not been able to do that in these cars because you've had to recover the battery energy. But this weekend, here's some radio from a Ferrari driver.
Seat keeps clicking.
It's Lewis Hamilton with a clicking seat. But in Monaco, the cars are energy rich for the first and possibly only time this year. So qualifying will be properly on the limit. Racing is a completely different question. That's about the overtake mode that is part of the sort of yo-yo racing that we've seen this year. It's been quite entertaining. Basically, the car behind, within a second of the car in front, gets half a megajoule of extra electrical energy to recover each lap. That allows them to stay close and often overtake, and then the position swaps the car behind, which was the car in front, then gets the extra half a megajoule. So you end up with these back and forth battles that last for a few laps before the car that's fundamentally quicker settles down in the lead position. People have wondered whether that will have an impact on Monaco. The truth is, we don't know until we get to the race. But the fact is, the cars, yes, they're a bit smaller this year, but they're only 10 centimetres narrower than they used to be last year, when people were saying they're too big and long, too wide and long. But they're still 10 centimetres wider than they used to be before 2017. And they're still, and Monaco is still a tight and twisty racetrack where there's fundamentally been no overtaking for 50 years or more. So I don't think that's really likely to change that much this time, unless there are big offsets in tyre degradation, for example, which again you don't really get in Monaco because everyone runs the same strategy and the tyres don't really wear out that much because the circuit is so smooth. Does that answer your question?
I think so. I think there was one...
Knows the answer.
Well, it's not what I wanted to hear, really, but I knew I wasn't going to hear what I wanted to hear. Yeah, I think there was one legitimate overtake last year in the race, which I think was Lance Stroll.
Last year was a bit of a...
We had that two-stop race, didn't we?
Yeah, exactly. There was a strange change to the rules which they introduced to try to make it more entertaining. It actually had the opposite effect, which was to have 2 pit stops. And the teams basically gamed that, starting with Williams, and everybody else followed suit with their 2 cars. That's gone away again. Charles Leclerc looks pretty determined to re-establish himself at the top of the timesheets here. So it's back to 1 stop, so it's a default 1-stop strategy in Monaco, and it all comes down to the undercut, overcut around the pit stops generally. But, you know, there may be 1 or 2 passes. Even Fernando Alonso, Mr. Doom and Gloom in his... Well, he's not Mr. Doom and Gloom. He's a very entertaining interview and conversationalist and press conference holder. But he's not enjoying life in the Aston Martin this year. Even he says there may be 1 or 2 overtakes in the race.
Leclerc has just overdone it slightly through the Nouvelle chicane. He's still up on Hamilton, a 10th up. He's slower in the middle sector. Just pushed it a little bit too hard into that chicane, skipped over the inside curb, but got away with it. It's not looking like a stunning final sector at the moment, so he might fall just a little bit short.
Cross the line. Oh, he doesn't, though. Finds a 10th and puts himself ahead of Hamilton as he slides out of turn 1. But Hamilton's going to try and fight back. But actually, so far through the first 2 sectors, he hasn't got it.
The fact that he's 2 tenths quicker, having made that cock up at the chicane, for want of a better way of putting it, that's very impressive.
The first sector did a lot of heavy lifting on that Leclerc lap. It was mighty. He has the fastest first sector of anyone so far. Hamilton the fastest sector 2. Max Verstappen still has the fastest sector 3. That was a mighty one earlier. He's out now, I think, on the softs. So we're going to start to see what the real pace is. But the Ferrari's still looking ominous at this stage.
Verstappen just on an outlap at the moment, so that would be intriguing to see what he does on the softs. Rosanna Tennant, I hear you have a question.
Well, I have a question, but I also have an update. Lando Norris is now back in the McLaren garage. He came along the pit lane, jumped over the Armco, crossed the fast lane, and he's now back in the garage talking to his race engineers. He's smiling, so he doesn't look too disappointed with the situation. But it does make me think, is this another Mercedes reliability issue? Because, of course, the McLarens have the Mercedes engine, and it was the battery, wasn't it, last time out for George Russell that had the catastrophic failure. And the big problem for Mercedes in that respect is that the hardware is being shipped back to the UK from Montreal, so they're not going to be able to work out what actually caused that failure proper for a few months. So this is another reliability issue that may come to haunt McLaren and Mercedes.
Yeah, and when we're about to head into quite a busy period over the next 5 weeks, we've got 4 races in that time, having had a bit of a stop-start nature to the season, then it is going to be tricky. Have you still got the question, Rosanna, or has that gone from you?
No, my question was whether this is going to be a reliability issue.
That was the question.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I thought that was my apologies.
It's okay, my intonation probably wasn't strong enough. Question mark?
That's all right. Look, we all make mistakes. It's fine. Yeah. I'll open that to the group.
Well, we don't want to make a big assumption, but as we were talking about earlier, the nature of the issue did lend itself to being something on the electric side, possibly, maybe the battery, somewhere within the Mercedes hardware, but it could be on the car side.
Yeah, it could be hydraulics, for example, which would also potentially cause the car to shut off, and that will be on McLaren. So we don't know is the bottom line, but I dare say we'll find out later.
I'm sure we will. Stay tuned to the BBC Sport website for all of that. And I'm sure, Scott, you'll have it as well.
Yeah, just a little bit afterwards. It's fine.
Right, getting so close to the wall once again. It's the Ferrari. Which one is it? It is Lewis Hamilton, apparently a centimetre away from the wall, which means he had a centimetre to play with.
That's better than what we saw from Leclerc in FP1. I think he was 5 centimetres from the wall.
Yeah.
I said there was margin. We've used up 80% of it.
Let's see what FP3 brings tomorrow. But certainly pushing hard then, just over half an hour of this session remaining. Charles Leclerc for Ferrari quickest, a 1:13.613 set on the medium tyre. Hamilton half a tenth away in second, but now we're getting a crossover onto the soft tyre, the red-walled rubber, the quickest tyre of the range that Pirelli are bringing, the softest in the range, we should say as well, Pirelli are bringing. Max Verstappen currently in third, having set a lap time on the medium tyre. Right now, though, can't top Charles Leclerc's fastest first sector, and he's got a bit of traffic in front of him as well.
Didn't see what happened on his first lap. It was a 17.5 on the soft, so he's either just done a sort of prep lap, effectively. I can't imagine that was him sort of bailing out of it, because this feels a bit too quick to have been, a proper lap that then got aborted. This is a better lap in terms of a faster middle sector from Verstappen than what he's done so far. You'd expect that on the softer tyre versus the medium, but he's not setting the timing screen alight. We see a lot of purple usually when somebody's about to go absolutely fastest. He's doing that in the final sector, and he'll do a better lap, I think. He does, but he's still a couple of attempts adrift, almost 3 attempts.
And fastest of anybody in the final sector, but you're right, a 1:13.902 sees him stay in third place. I just wonder whether it needs a couple of quick laps a couple of warm-up laps to prep those tyres for Verstappen, but also we know the Red Bull and Max Verstappen off the back of Canada still not completely comfortable when it comes to curb riding and that car and the balance over bumps as well.
He's doing consecutive running, Verstappen, so he's on a better lap already. But the Mercedes drivers are on even faster laps. Still not quite as quick as Leclerc, though.
As Hülkenberg pops up into fourth on the soft tyre.
And Russell looks quicker than Antonelli on this lap for the first time all day, actually.
But he's got traffic. He's got a load of traffic in coming out of Rascasse, and that would have completely bulked that lap time.
Yeah, he was definitely on course to beat Antonelli on that lap. He was a tenth, I think it was, quicker in sector 1 and a couple of tenths quicker in sector 2 before that traffic, which is encouraging, because I was actually beginning, not that I'm allowed to worry about racing drivers because I'm objective, obviously, but it was beginning to look until then as if Antonelli was quicker than Russell again, and Russell really doesn't need that this weekend.
To the top of the times, Max Verstappen, again on the soft tyre. Just over a tenth between himself and Charles Leclerc now. We haven't seen the two Ferraris appear on the soft tyre yet, but certainly Verstappen has. Antonelli has swapped over along with George Russell, but I think it was quick, and then it was just coming out of Rascasse where Russell was just completely stuck behind one of the Audis. I think it was Bortoletto. And that's something you could so easily see in qualifying.
Yeah, I think you've got to do a bit better there. If you're Bortoletto, you can move aside there and still get your lap away. But that Max Verstappen lap, that was on the third consecutive push on the tyre, so that's a different approach from Red Bull that they're looking at.
Hamilton finding more time on the medium tyre, puts himself to within a tenth of Verstappen on the soft tyre, so it's still strong running for Ferrari so far. Hülkenberg in the Audi continues to look quick, having been fast in free practice 1, and Audi kind of in need of a decent result this weekend. It's been a long while since they've scored any points, which was Gabriel Bortoletto back at the start of the year, and Nico Hülkenberg is still not off the mark yet, which it feels like it's been ages in the season. I know we've obviously lost a few races, but for Hülkenberg, he's had 3 Grand Prix qualifyings where he's qualified 11th. He's had 2 sprint qualifying sessions where he's qualified 11th, and he's finished 2 Grand Prix in 11th place. It just feels like it's teasing him at this point.
It didn't help that there was a point a couple of weekends ago where Audi had a 1 in 2 strike rate of failing to get one of its cars to start a race, whether it was a Grand Prix or a sprint. So it was a bit 50, quite literally 50-50, I think, at one stage, whether either Audi would start. But the pace has been there. Its conversion rate's probably the worst of anyone We see one of the Mercedes Antonelli, I think, was off at the Nouvelle Chicane.
I think he's just gone deep and was waiting to rejoin. Doesn't look like any kind of issue, and he's got back going again. It was Kimi Antonelli. George Russell's making his way through to back now on a quicker run, pushing, and 0.02 of a second off Max Verstappen in the middle, said to be. Caught traffic again, but Piastri just darts out the way on the exit of the second part of the swimming pool chicane. Clear air for Russell as he comes up but over the crest through Anthony Nogues, the final right-hand corner that then sets you down the start-finish straight. What's he got? Finds second place, a 1:13.515, about half a tenth slower than Max Verstappen for Russell.
I think that although Piastri did get out of the way, he was right on the line in a pretty sketchy way, and I think that will have impeded Russell just a little bit, and not in terms of penalty or anything, just it won't have been the optimum lap is what I'm saying.
Now what? Oh, Oscar Piastri having a tap of the wall, and front left making contact. That's coming out of the hairpin through the right hander of turn 7 before you go into Portier.
That's a very odd incident.
Bit clumsy.
Yeah, it did look exactly that. It was almost like he was trying to open up the entry to Portier, and it just misjudged it a bit.
I wonder if he got a little bit too much curb through the right hander at 7, sent him wide, and then on the outside of the circuit there, just before you, as it sort of straightens up, there's this like divot on the left-hand side as the road falls away, and you don't normally end up quite that far wide. So if he's taken a bit too much curve there, he's maybe ended up slightly wide there, and then it sort of like almost bounced into the wall. It was very strange, very unusual.
I have to say, McLaren are probably of the top 4 teams, they're the ones that have not had the best day, to say the least. They were being tipped by quite a few people to be in contention for pole position, and maybe they still will be, because they've got a shorter wheelbase car than the other top 3 teams, which should add extra manoeuvrability around Monaco. Plus they were quick in Canada a couple of weekends ago, and that's got lots of slow corners as well, and a low grip surface just like this one. Normally they correlate reasonably well, the 2 circuits, even though Canada's a lot faster. But McLaren have not looked in good shape today at all. They've never looked on the pace on any of their laps, really. And obviously we've only got Oscar Piastri to look at the moment because of Lando Norris's reliability problem, but I think they've got some head scratching to do overnight.
Even McLaren's own analysis, Andrea Stella, the team principal, told us a couple of weeks ago in Canada that we're looking ahead to Monaco. Slow speed corners would be what McLaren considers its strength relative to its opposition compared to medium and high speed. So there was a feeling in McLaren that this circuit would suit the team better, and so it wasn't just external expectation as well, that they weren't playing it down or anything like that, but it hasn't manifested so far.
No, they've had a slightly up and down, flattering to deceive type of season so far, haven't they? Didn't start that competitively. Bright spot in Japan. Miami looked really competitive, and then obviously they made a catastrophic error with the tyres at the start of the race in Canada, so we don't really know how they would have gone there, but they qualified effectively. But then today, it's only Friday practice, so they may well turn things around. And often McLaren are a little bit offset in terms of pace on Friday, aren't they, Scott, where they run a different fuel load than the others. But not looking that great at the moment anyway.
That's the voice of the BBC F1 correspondent Andrew Benson alongside Scott Mitchell-Mann from the race. It's Harry Benjamin up with them in the commentary box with 27 minutes and 2:10 seconds left of free practice 2, and we have Rosanna Tennant for us in the pit lane. And actually, Rosanna, I don't know where you are, but just looking out our commentary box windows, a few sort of darker grey clouds emerging. I don't know what you can see.
You're right, they do look fairly ominous. Some dark clouds surrounded by some white, fluffier clouds, and the sun trying its best to burn through. But it's weird here in Monaco because it can be bright blue sky over the harbour, and then the clouds almost spill over the rock face and the cliffs above Monte Carlo, a bit like sort of fluffy candy floss, and then nothing really happens. So I'm not sure whether it's just looking a little ominous and won't provide any rain, or whether we do need to reach for our umbrellas and ponchos, which I have left in the hotel in Nice.
So the 15-minute walk to the train station back might be a little bit tricky, Rosanna.
Yeah, passing shower, hopefully. I can just shelter somewhere else.
She's going to get pretty wet at the Red Bull party later as well, isn't she?
Well, don't give away trade secrets, Andrew. No,
It's a very very, very boring work trip, Andrew.
Yeah, I think
as we all know.
party's overstating it, isn't it? It's a couple of drinks and nibbles, but anyway, it's very kind.
It's a networking event. I'm led to believe.
Absolutely.
Half a lager shandy for me, please.
Well, I'm driving, so
A quarter lager shandy for you, Benny.
Just an orange squash for me, please. Just actually saw, I don't know if you saw that, Scott, a bit of, looked like carbon fibre on the start-finish straight. Or maybe, I don't know, a plastic bag just sort of blowing in.
We have a slippery surface flag now, right at the literally track sector 1. So you've been eagle-eyed there, Harry.
Well, that's part of the job, Scott, you see. Well, we'll see. It's not affecting anybody yet, but fastest of anybody in the middle sector is Charles Leclerc, ramping up the times. Now Charles Leclerc on that soft tyre, along with his Ferrari teammate Lewis Hamilton. Obviously, nothing on the start-finish straight to indicate anything that needs more than just a slippery surface flag, as Charles Leclerc crosses the line to go fastest, the 1:13.137, half a tenth between himself and Verstappen.
That's interesting because Verstappen had himself just lowered the bar, so he'd gone 2 or 3 tenths faster, I think, than his previous best. There's barely anything between the Ferrari and the Red Bull, which is absolutely fascinating. Antonelli's, this could be a better lap. He's tracking to be a slightly better lap at the moment. He's 6 tenths adrift, so he needs a better lap.
The car in sector 2 is so unpredictable.
That's Antonelli on the radio. Yeah, he lost 3 tenths alone, I think, in the middle sector to Charles Leclerc, and comes across the line 5th, 4 tenths adrift.
It's 4 tenths now then between Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, McLaren. Certainly for Piastri at the moment, almost a second adrift. Hulkenberg and Audi pace, just nowhere near it.
Now, I think we're going to see what happened on the start-finish straights. Oscar Piastri, yes, something does come across onto the track.
Yeah, there was some debris on the front straight that just came off the Cadillac, I think.
So something might have broken off the Cadillac and been distributed along the start-finish straight, but it's clearly not clunky enough to cause too much disruption, as now the slippery surface flag, I think, might have gone away, and everybody is still out there on track, with the exception of Lando Norris, who has had to pull up with some sort of failure on his car, and Isaac Hadjar actually is back in pit lane after a slow start. I think, though, there's seeing a bit of action outside Red Bull. They might be getting ready to send him out again, and also Hulkenberg, along with Verstappen, is back in the pit lane.
Hamilton is on a better lap. He's a tenth and a half almost up on Leclerc after the first couple of sectors. We've got a little bit of a shot of him now, so he's into the final corner, and he's about to go fastest, Harry.
I think he is. Here he comes. Piastri crosses the line first, and to the top will go Hamilton. Piastri can only manage 6th and puts a second between 1st and 6th place, which is where the McLaren driver Piastri crossed the line. Hamilton a 10th clear of his teammate Charles Leclerc, a 1:13.026. Do the Tifosi dare to believe at this stage of the game that they are in for a shot here of being not just competitive, but being right up in the mix for pole position and Grand Prix victory?
There is time on the table for the Ferraris too, because they've annexed the 3 best sectors so far. Leclerc fastest in the 1st and 3rd sectors, Hamilton in the middle. The combined fastest Ferrari time is actually a 12.85, which is almost 2 tenths quicker than what Hamilton has managed. So if they could just have a word with each other, work out what they're doing, and that tidy it all up a little bit, then Ferrari will be home and dry for qualifying.
So their last win, Ferrari, you've got to go back to Mexico 2024 with Carlos Sainz. It's been a long old wait, hasn't it? I know I'm getting ahead of myself here, but just, we're just laying the ground for what could be a potentially seismic weekend, not only for the season, but for Ferrari fans around the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a surprise, first of all, that Ferrari are quick in Monaco. First of all, they're always quick in Monaco, even when they're having pretty bad years. Think of 2021, how Charles Leclerc put that car on that pole position there, I don't know. They were really not competitive at all. But that's the point. They haven't been competitive this year either. They're nearly half a second off Mercedes on average in qualifying. They messed up their strategy in Australia, but other than that, they've not been anywhere near a race victory, even when they got into the lead of the race early on after their
Oh, that's the thump of Colapinto locking up his Alpine. Still turns it in at Saint-Devote, and actually he's lucky to not tear the front left off his car. He takes a big old whack to the front left and the rear left of that pink and blue Alpine, but carries on.
He's kept going, Harry, but he can't possibly have got away with that, surely. Well, he's really given the barrier quite a whack.
The marshals, the brilliant marshals here in Monaco, knew what was coming there the second they saw the car locking up and arriving. He took so much speed into turn one. Brave to still commit to trying to get round the corner, but to Andrew's point, I can't believe he has got away with it in the way that he has, because that car should have ended up in a crumpled heap by the side of the track, and somehow he's sort of
just made it back. Yeah, back to the pit lane. Rosanna, I wonder if you can have a sniff around Alpine to see how much damage that actually did for Franco Colapinto, who is down in 14th. Pierre Gasly up inside the top 8, and well, it's been an interesting time for Alpine. Franco Colapinto has actually been a man in form over the last few races, back-to-back point scores, best career qualifying and race results last time out in Canada, and actually he's been pretty confidently ahead of Gasly the last couple of race weekends. Not seeing that so clearly yet here in Monaco.
No, they've sort of switched positions, whereas Gasly was nice and comfortable, confident, quick and scoring points in the car the first few weekends. Colapinto's had the better time of it the last two. Gasly's been scratching his head, making some noises along the lines of, you know, there being problems on his side of the garage, or, you know, clearly things in the data not working. That hasn't really reflected the reality of what the team have seen, but the team has tidied a couple of things up, I think, that it has found. And the theory was, we don't think this is going to make a big difference, but it could be that there's enough of a kind of feeling impact there, and there's kind of translation of this, that it's a little bit in the driver's head in terms of a bit of an overreaction to what's actually happening, that maybe it will have a bigger output than it should in raw numbers. So far it's a bit better for Gasly, although it has been overhauled by both Audis now, because Bortoletto's gone faster behind Hülkenberg and Ollie Bearman in the hat, so it's not the midfield leader that we saw a couple of races ago.
No, that midfield fight has been chopping and changing over the course of these first 6 races. At the moment it is indeed Hülkenberg heading that fight in 7th, then comes Bortoletto, Bearman up in 9th, so Bearman, whereas Haas actually were languishing for time in FP1, seems to have found a little something in FP2. Gasly rounding out the top 10, and the other Alpine, Franco Colapinto, who we saw escape just about the barriers at turn 1, but still took a hefty hit, made it back to the pit lane. Rosanna, you're outside Alpine, what can you tell us?
I've just been watching the Alpine mechanics wrestling the front wing off, trying desperately to sort of wrestle it away from its fittings. It's now off. 2 mechanics are holding it up high, while another mechanic bends down onto his knee, and I can't quite see, he's being obscured by the front wing, but obviously working on what has been potentially damaged in that brush with the wall. And that's one of the Audis heading out on track. But yeah, I'm just watching the mechanics working obviously as quickly as they can to establish what's been damaged and how they can get him out on track as quickly as possible, as the other mechanics stand and gather for Pierre Gasly, who is heading down the pit lane right now, and now swings it into the pit box, and there he is coming in on the soft tyres. The mechanics put the leaf blowers on and they wrench it up onto the jack, and he's going to be wheeled back into his side of the garage. He's the left side of the garage down here at Alpine, and it's so tight in this pit lane, Harry. The garages are so tight. It feels like there are more mechanics, but I think it's just that they're all tightly packed in to these little narrow garages we have.
Yeah, they're all stacked up on top of each other, aren't they? Which is why we have the garages. Then you have a level above, well, 2 levels above, which is where the engineering and then a bit of hospitality is split over as well. So not the usual setup that we get. But for Alpine then, well, they're off the back of a good run. Gasly scored points in the first 5 Grand Prix weekends, and the highest midfield scoring driver of the last 2 Grand Prix is Franco Colapinto. So let's see if they can continue that momentum coming into this weekend. Hadjar back out on track, crosses the line on the soft tyre, rebuilding after that shunt in FP1. He's down in 16th. Up at the top though, with just over 16 minutes remaining, Hamilton is quickest with a 1:13.0, a tenth ahead of Leclerc. Verstappen, Russell, Antonelli the top 5, with Piastri's McLaren in 6th, a second adrift of the Ferrari.
Hamilton was flirting with going even quicker on his last lap, but he came into the pits at the end of it. I think he might have lost a little bit of time either at the end of sector 2 or start of sector 3. That's Alex Albon you can hear on the radio now.
What is that?
He has caught a nasty...
Oh my God. That's really dangerous.
A really nasty bit of traffic for him through the blind part into Massenet. Thought he'd cleared the worst of it and got to the top.
There was another one. I think that was a Racing Bulls, was on the inside, and then as he bailed right out of it, turning through the right-hander, that takes you through Casino Square. I haven't really seen much of the Williams duo. Sainz is down in 11th. Albon down in 12th, so not writing much at the moment. Sainz was able to nick a couple of points last time out in Canada. Albon has had, to be honest, a pretty torrid season so far. Luck not always going his way either. I think that's fair. I think Canada, he might well have been the most unluckiest driver I think I've seen in quite some while in one weekend for dear old Alex Albon. But in terms of that, if we just talk about the midfield briefly, Scott, how good is that battle at the moment? We've seen obviously Alpine take a big step. They've got the Mercedes engine now. Williams are still fighting back from having been so good last year to being underwhelming this year. Racing Bulls have shown real fast turns of speed at times, but it's the consistency, I suppose, that we don't see as much from those guys.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been a bit topsy-turvy. I do think Alpine is the fastest team in the midfield. The others kind of have their moments, but the most consistent threat right now certainly is the Renault own team. I was going to say the Renault Works team, but obviously a Mercedes customer. Now that's paid off. Charles Leclerc, I mentioned Hamilton was doing this just now. Charles Leclerc was flirting with going quickest that time round. He has all but matched his personal best. Didn't quite complete the lap, and we're seeing a replay of a lock-up for Hamilton into the Nouvelle Chicane, and I wonder if this is where that better lap got away from him.
And bit of is that a tyre blanket just getting in the way, or some sort of insulation for Lewis Hamilton as he pulls in to his grid box, and it's really wanting to fly underneath of that Ferrari, and they seem to have been caught unawares by Hamilton, who's not too happy with that communication as he comes in for a few changes on the front wing. Yeah,
I think he was signalling to, apart from the fact that there was something in the pit box that shouldn't have been there, I think he was signalling that he wanted a turn of the front wing or two, and to tweak that. So maybe there was a radio message there that didn't get heard. We obviously didn't hear the communication, but he clearly wanted to get in, get the change done, get back out again, because as I said, the Ferraris, they haven't optimised everything. They are still a couple of attempts adrift of what their theoretical bests are, and we've seen them be on better laps without being better sectors as well. So there's a lot more to come. For example, George Russell, he's nearly 4 tenths off in the times, down in 4th place, the better of the 2 Mercedes. He had done a slightly better lap before coming into the pits, but that lap was compromised in the final sector. He was a tenth or so adrift of Hamilton's fastest, but he's ended up nearly 4 tenths off because of a little bit of traffic in the final sector. Exactly how much he would have lost anyway, who knows? But what my point is that 13 minutes ago in FP2, we had this order here. It's already a very interesting order, but it's a bit misleading. We don't actually know what some of these cars are capable of.
As Hadjar, who is running out of sequence, really, to certainly his teammate and the rest of the field. He has put on the soft tyre, though. Goes 6th fastest. He's a second away from Hamilton, and just about 9 tenths away from his teammate Verstappen. But building back up confidence is Hadjar after his crash in free practice 1, and down on laps as well in this session compared to his teammate. What's he done? About 18, and Max has done 26 in comparison for the 2 Red Bulls. But time and time again, we're seeing the Ferraris putting in the laps, 29 each. I think that's about the most of anybody. I think the 2 Williams drivers and the Racing Bulls of Arvid Libblad have done similar, and Hamilton coming back around the final corner, and it just looks on edge, but in a good way, that Ferrari. He's really ragging it around every corner.
It's certainly a car that, while on corner entry, under braking, it's proving a bit tricky, and it has had its moments. That seems to have been dialed out in FP2. Famous last words. Hopefully we don't see one lock up and drift into the barrier now. The movement now has moved sort of mid-corner, corner exit. They're throwing the car around. They're doing so many laps, pushing so hard. They're really trying to get the most out of it.
Lance Stroll decided that he was going to flirt with the wall at Portier, and then managed to just avoid it last minute, and is really struggling with that front left locking up again at the Nouvelle Chicane. And Stroll out there, we're now back in the pits actually. He's last of the runners, 3 seconds adrift, a second slower than teammate Fernando Alonso, who's only in 20th, with the 2 Cadillacs keeping them company, along with Lando Norris, who's obviously out of this session early doors. Perez 18th, then Norris, Alonso, Bottas and Stroll when we look at the rear of the field.
Yeah, there's been a bit of a trend at Aston Martin this year. Obviously, Fernando Alonso has always been faster than Lance Stroll, and what is it, 41 consecutive qualifying sessions so far,
Correct.
Harry, that he's been leading him.
Indeed.
For Grand Prix. But last year, the average gap between them was only about 0.3 of a second. This year, it's out to 0.6. And he was a second quicker than him in Canada last time out, and that's nearly a second here again in Monaco. And what I'm told from inside the Aston Martin team is it's what we've seen quite often through Alonso's career. If the car's bad, he's utterly exceptional at getting the most out of it, whereas other drivers who have got less natural talent can't get what he can get out of it. Whereas if the car's good, the gap between him and the rest of the others closes up. Especially when the Aston Martin is a particular kind of bad. It's not just a car that's, generally light on downforce, but reasonably well balanced. It's just not got much potential, so therefore you can kind of get up to its ceiling, not easily because it's still an F1 car. This is just an all over the place kind of bad. And one thing I don't quite understand, and Andrew may be better placed to comment because he's a learned, experienced F1 journalist, and I'm a man of very little brain. But this is an Adrian Newey designed car. Adrian was talking back at the start of the season that he felt chassis-wise it was a top 10 potential car, and he seemed to be indicating it already was as a chassis. It was just the engine side of things was lacking. But from everything I've seen so far, not just this weekend, but the season so far, it's not very good on the brakes, it's not good on the front axle, it's not good on the rear axle, it's nervous on entry, it's bad on traction, it's bad on downshifts, it's unreliable. Now, some of that is obviously down to the engine, some of that is down to the fact that Aston Martin's making its first gearbox as a team. I think this is the first time Team Silverstone's made one for 19 years or something like that. But how has Adrian Newey led the design of such a bad car? Well, first of all, on the split between engine and chassis as to whether one's more responsible than the other, I think it's difficult to know for sure. There's definitely a deficit on the engine. I'm told from a source I trust implicitly in the team that deficit is 50 kilowatts, which is 67 horsepower in old terms, on the internal combustion engine front. Of course, that's leaving out where they are on the energy recovery hybrid system. 50 kilowatts is a lot of lap time, but the car is 3-ish seconds off the pace, and it's not 3 seconds. But if you were to put it, what it does say is that the car's not 3 seconds off the pace on its own. So if let's say you put a Mercedes engine in the Aston Martin, you probably maybe halve that gap. So that would put it somewhere towards the sort of back end of the top 10 Q2-ish. Of course, cars can have problems and still be relatively performant, as they say in Formula 1. I'm not saying the Aston Martin is that, but it's not a back-of-the-grid car with a Mercedes engine in it. It's the obvious thing, and the Williams does have a Mercedes engine in it, for example, and it is towards the back. So I think we can confidently say the Aston Martin will be quicker than Williams. That's not where Aston Martin want to be. I think the answer as to how an Adrian Newey car is so slow is quite straightforward, really. Basically, the team fundamentally isn't ready. He arrived in March last year, the beginning of March, which was 2 months after the regulations were first released. They'd already done some work on the regulations by then, the aerodynamic regulations. When he got there, he didn't like the work that they'd done and told them to start again based on his concept, which obviously took a bit of time to do. The wind tunnel wasn't ready for the car at that point anyway. The car didn't get into the wind tunnel until mid-ish April. So by that point, they're 4 months or so behind everybody else in terms of aerodynamic development, which is just too much of a gap to make up. And they've also built their own gearbox, for the first time in nearly more than 20 years, and it's not good enough, basically. So they've got a big upgrade coming on the chassis side for, I'm told, around about the Belgian Grand Prix. And they've got an engine upgrade coming for, I'm told, around about Zandvoort.
Is that the one they get for this Aduo
If they get the Aduo, yes, which they will.
Sure.
But there's a bit of politics and shenanigans going on with the additional upgrade opportunities at the moment related to the 27 engine regulations, which I better not go into because I'll get into all.
We've only got 6 minutes left.
I'll get into all sorts of trouble, and a long run corner we're going to have to just abandon probably because I've been talking too much to write any numbers down. But I think only then will we get a sense of whether Aston Martin are capable of getting on a forward trend. And one final point, I think Fernando Alonso, whose contract runs out this year, is waiting to see what that upgrade, those two upgrades do, and as to whether he can stomach another year, basically. Because I think deep down he wants to carry on because he doesn't want to end his career on such a tragic note as it is this year. But if he thinks it's going to be the same again next year, he probably doesn't fancy it. But I think if he thinks that the team can make, if he sees evidence the team can make a step forward, then I think he probably will stick around for at least one more year. And I personally hope he does because he's so much fun to have around.
Rosanna, over to you.
Well, I was just going to say Adrian Newey is here this weekend leading the Aston Martin team as team principal, but I just want to play devil's advocate for 2 moments. If you think he's left behind Red Bull, and surely he had input into how Red Bull approach these new regulations, Red Bull's not doing that well, and then he's gone to Aston Martin and told them to rip it all up and start again, and they're not doing very well. So has Adrian Newey lost his touch? There you go, that's my devil's advocate, as Lance Stroll comes past me on a scooter, going a little faster than an Aston Martin.
Rosanna, sorry, we'll come back to that, but there's smoke coming out of the cockpit of Sergio Perez as he pulls off the track at Casino Square, and he's got his brakes on fire, and he now rapidly trying to get out of that Cadillac as flames only at the moment looking like they're confined to the brake disc and the internals of the front right tyre, as he tries to beckon the marshals over to put that out because he doesn't want any unnecessary damage that there needs to be, and they are now there ready with the spray, and that will be Perez out of the car. Cadillac session finishes in flames.
I think he was beckoning to the marshal to put a stop under the left front because the car was rolling backwards as he was trying to get out. Once that was happened, they could get on with the fire extinguishers. Perez just sort of had to sit there waiting for the car to stop rolling back slightly. Very difficult to find any portion of track here in Monaco that isn't likely on a hill of some kind.
And I think also that's basically the end of the session because he stopped on the exit of Casino Square, and okay, there is a place for them to wheel that car up behind a barrier, but we've only got 4 minutes left, so we're not going to get any consequential long running, I'm afraid. On Rosanna's Adrian Newey question, I don't think, Rosanna, you can blame Newey for this year's Red Bull because he left, if you remember, in April 2024. Definitely not his fault. And they did nearly win the World Championship last year in the concept of car that he came up with for the 2022 regulations. And I think it's way too early to judge, as I was saying earlier, his work at Aston Martin. The one thing I would say is I don't really understand why. Okay, he wasn't technically allowed to work for Aston Martin until March the 2nd, but I'm kind of surprised that he didn't kind of do some secret work, because I've got a little anecdote here for you, given while we've got a red flag. I remember back in 1997, Adrian Newey left Williams at the end of 96, November 96, and McLaren, he went to McLaren and didn't start work there till the beginning of September 97 because of his gardening leave. And McLaren were a decent team for the most part in 97. And then the first race that Newey was working for them was the Italian Grand Prix, and it was like 3 days after he'd started work. And they turned up at the Italian Grand Prix with a carbon copy front wing from the Williams. And Patrick Head, who was the technical director of Williams, I won't repeat what he said because he was very upset about the fact that had happened. It's like, how on earth has they got that wing on that car so quickly? I don't believe Adrian's not been working for them. This was the general tone of it. So if he can do that with McLaren in 1997, why couldn't he have done it for Aston Martin in 2026? I don't know the answer to that. I've not had a chance to ask him. And it's not the sort of thing he'd probably comment on anyway if I know Adrian Newey, as I do. But yeah, they've just ended up in a mess. But I don't think we can judge him yet.
But don't you think he started working on the Red Bull car way before he left? I think they were starting in 2023 before he left. Well, surely.
No, but don't forget. You're right, Rosanna. But don't forget. Well, first of all, I don't know how much he did on that. But also, beginning of 2024, when he left Red Bull fundamentally because of the Christian Horner allegations that came out at the time, but also because of some internal politics that were going on in Red Bull at the time. It's a long way before starting work on the 25 rules, so I haven't asked him, but I don't think he would lay claim to this generation of Red Bull.
Okay.
Well, interesting debate there as we get the session back underway with 1:18 on the clock. No Sergio Perez, having been suddenly engulfed in smoke and some flames, which were put out fairly quickly, but unfortunately he now has to sit and watch from the sidelines. Shame for Perez. Scott, he's off the back of a couple of good weekends, very much put Bottas in the shade, which I suppose is all he can really ask for, being in the Cadillac team this year.
Yeah, I had a good chat with him during the Canada weekend. I spoke to him for a little bit on Thursday here as well, and he's feeling punchy at the moment, is Checo. He believes he is proving already that he is one of the best drivers in F1. Was very confident in his own ability within about 10 laps of driving an old Ferrari at the end of last year. Came back to F1, he says, to prove to himself, not to anybody else, that the last 6 months of his dire final Red Bull season wasn't going to define him and his career. And whether you agree with it, he's one of the best drivers in F1 or not, I think we are seeing a much better side of Checo Perez than we saw in that final year of Red Bull.
Well, it's hard to know, isn't it? I think for me, I would turn the Cadillac question around at the moment and ask what on earth's gone on with Valtteri Bottas, because he wasn't anywhere close to being Lewis Hamilton's most challenging teammate, but he did a decent fist of being teammate to Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes, a couple of tenths off on average in qualifying, and yet he's been absolutely nowhere in the Cadillac. And I have to admit that Cadillac are too far down the grid for me to be bothered because I've only got so much time in my day to have spent too much time wondering about what Valtteri Bottas' personal pain is in that car. Maybe you've done more, Scott, but it doesn't make sense that the gap between them is as big as it is. So I would look at it more that way around than Perez is amazing.
Well, lucky for you, Andrew, while I may not be a man of much brain, I am a man of much time, so I have spent a little bit of that on the Cadillac situation of late. And Bottas has been beset by a few different issues here and there. He hasn't been happy with a few things, but as a general rule, he has simply also been slower than Perez. And I think there might be a bit of inconsistency across the two cars, just in terms of Cadillac getting up to speed as an organisation, running two of them. But I think there was a little bit of a decline at the end of his Sauber stint as well, Bottas, and after a year out, it just doesn't feel like he's come back with quite the same kind of fire and internal. Perez has come back with something to prove to himself, to the wider world, whatever. Bottas, not quite in the same way. And you don't need a huge change in the input in F1 to have a significant or tangible change in the output.
Interesting storylines up and down the field, but that has brought the checkered flag out at the end of Friday's running. Free practice 2 over, and it's once again Ferrari 1 and 2. Hamilton a tenth ahead of Charles Leclerc. Red Bull's Max Verstappen in third. Then come the two Mercedes of George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. Isaac Hadjar up in sixth. Oscar Piastri in the sole remaining McLaren in that session, a second adrift, down in seventh. Then came the two Audis of Hulkenberg and Bortoleto, with Oliver Behrman rounding out the top 10. Pierre Gasly 11th for Alpine. The two Williams, Sainz and Albon follow. Then it's Arvid Lindblad's Racing Bulls with Franco Colapinto in the other Alpine rounding out the top 15. Liam Lawson 16th ahead of the Haas of Esteban Ocon. The Cadillac of Sergio Perez, despite going up in flames at the end, he managed to get 18th ahead of Lando Norris, who we will investigate what on earth happened to his McLaren to conk out on the Nouvelle Chicane early doors. Alonso 20th, Valtteri Bottas 23rd and 21st, and Lance Stroll 22nd and last of the runners as the practice starts ensue on the grid. Scott's Ferrari 1 and 2, once again it's looking ominous.
It is. I was about to say Bottas is having a particularly difficult time if he's 23rd in the 22 car field. Yeah. It's not that bad.
Slip of the tongue there. Sorry, Valtteri.
Yes, it is. It's very encouraging for Ferrari. As I say, it is repeating the point from a few minutes ago. So fascinated by this, not just because of that final order. I mean, if we came out of qualifying with a 10th between the top three, Ferraris on the front row, that would be fascinating. And they're doing a practice start right now with the two Ferraris on the front row. Leclerc on pole position rather than Hamilton. So bragging rights to Leclerc in terms of that lineup. But again, we don't actually know. That's the order right now. Tomorrow's a whole new day, but they haven't maximised it. There's time on the table for the Ferraris. There's time on the table, certainly for one of the Mercedes. McLaren's a second adrift. So what's going on there? This will be a great picture come qualifying. It could be very different.
No, there's a little bit of overtaking going on. I love this between the two Ferraris down the inside at Mirabeau. Lovely work from the two Ferraris. Is that a bit of a gamesmanship early doors? I think Hamilton coming down the inside of Charles Leclerc there. Lovely work from the Ferraris, but save it for the race, please. Could we get some decent overtaking going on? Right, we've just got a minute left. Rosanna, your thoughts from pit lane after that session?
Well, a little bit to reflect on overnight, isn't it? As Mercedes get ready to do a practice pit stop, McLaren are going to be scratching their heads as to what stopped Lando Norris. They think it might be an electrical fault, but they're going to wait to see when the car gets back. And they've got, obviously, this evening and tomorrow morning to figure it out and get him back out for FP3.
They certainly have indeed. Thank you very much to the team. FP3, by the way, look on BBC Sounds for that. We'll be on air at 11:25 tomorrow, ahead of the session starting at 11:30. And the big one, qualifying, will be on 5 Sports Extra, 2:55 ahead of the green light coming on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That just about does it here from Monaco. I think we're going to go and try and find ourselves a yacht or so, but there's more action on the way here on Sports Extra 3. We're going to join the Women's Football World Cup qualifiers. It's Montenegro against Wales, so let's head over to BBC Radio Wales.
From Wales, and Maisie Davis, who wins her 7th cap today.